Welcome back to the NerdNest podcast. I'm Sarah Montgomery, your host as always, and this week my guests are
Daniel,
Josh.
my brothers back again. We've had them on very frequently. So we're back with our 24th podcast. We're almost a quarter of the way to 100, which is just kind of an arbitrary number, so I don't know why I'm... Anyways, this week we wanted to talk about Marvel, because we've been pretty heavy on the DC stuff. And also not a lot is really happening right now, so we know comics, and that's kind of our default. So we can talk about anything under the sun, but I kind of want to start off talking about the Doctor Strange trailer, because it was a teaser trailer, so there's not, like, obviously there's not a lot
to go off of. Only thing we noticed was his hands are scarred, so sticking to the comic origins, good on them.
Which is good.
Not like they haven't really been too
Marvel,
bad about that recently. So
it's kind of surprising how close Marvel is to the comics. Like, you don't even think about it, but basically every character is, pretty accurate from what we normally see. So
Plus casting is pretty impeccable, like across the board for almost everything. I don't think I've had any problems with anything that Marvel's cast.
I think Benedict Cumberbatch is probably like the biggest name they've casted for a role. Maybe Robert Downey Jr., but he was kind of...
He fell off the map before he was Iron Man.
They kind of revived his role.
Yeah.
Before that, he was the alcoholic drug guy
normally
that no one wanted to hire.
Yeah, normally they get more unknown actors. So.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I would say unknown.
Well,
but these are
never
very,
been in a huge
sure, but they're
role
career making roles.
Yeah, but at the same time, you got Benedict Cumberbatch, who's got that booming voice.
He's just perfect for.
That just sounds like he should be saying magical words.
Yeah, and he absolutely looks the part of Doctor Strange and Stephen Strange. Like, he looks phenomenal in that role, and I think Tilda Swinton is the woman that's playing the Ancient One. She looks good at that role. Like, I have no problem. I know in the comics he was like an Asian mystic. It does not seem out of place at all. Like, she seems like she's going to do that great job for the role. And Mads Mikkelsen, who's one of my personal favorite TV actors, at least. Well, I mean, just actors in general, but I know him from Hannibal. He, like, from the behind the set photos that we've seen of him in his full makeup and his full wardrobe, and then the snippets that we get from this trailer, looks very, very good. And I know he's a very strong actor, so I'm confident that he'll do very well. Actually, I was looking at IMDb the other day, because I was, after watching the Doctor Strange trailer, and I was just looking at the cast. And IMDb does, like, actor ratings. So Benedict Cumberbatch, unsurprisingly, is in, like, the top 5,000 actors. Which is, not shocking. Actually, I think he was in the top 1,000. Mads Mikkelsen was in, like, the top 50 when I checked.
Whoa.
And I was like, I was like, why is he up there? So I went to his IMDb to check if he's done anything lately that I just hadn't realized. The last thing, like, big that he did that was released was Hannibal. And then there's Doctor Strange, and he's going to be in Rogue One.
Oh, wow.
So it's two things that's going to happen, and then this TV show, which was, like, phenomenal. He acted great in, but I was like, what? I was like, that's strange that this puts him over Benedict Cumberbatch, but I guess MCU and Marvel at the same time makes you kind of a big deal.
Well, I mean, MCU and Marvel? You just said the same.
Star Wars.
MCU and Star Wars.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I was going to say they're both owned by Disney at this point, so.
Yeah, well, sure, but it's still, like, huge universes on their own right. So it's just kind of a big deal. And that's what I like about Star Wars. And Marvel's doing this. Like, Marvel, I think, is the one that kind of monopolized this and turned this into they really monetized it, is what I mean. And they made it into its own sort of, like, there's films and then there's film universes. And that's what I think Marvel's really started to establish.
That's kind of
and
what
DC's
I
following with
really
their TV
liked
shows.
how they did it is they aren't going on. They're not just doing the comic books over again in a film adaptation. Yeah. It's its own universe.
Yeah. And the good thing about that is it gives small stories and small characters the ability to have their own time, like have their own little parcels and universes. And you see this in the Star Wars universe, where a very, very minor detail it's a big plot point, but it's a kind of brushed past in Star Wars A New Hope is, we stole the plans for the Death Star. Now we have to go destroy
it. It was almost like a throwaway line in the original.
It was like, this is how we got
we
the
stole
plans.
We stole the plans of Death Star. It's like,
Yep, and now they're making a movie about it. That's what Rogue One is about. So these whole storylines can take on a life of their own because the universe is just so big. And because it fleshes it out so much, you really grow acquainted with all of these characters to a point where it feels real.
Yeah, and it doesn't even feel like they're trying to, it's like a money grab kind of thing.
Absolutely.
It's because you're genuinely interested in this universe.
Yeah.
So you kind of want to see how they stole the plans to the Death Star. So the fact that they're making a movie just kind of adds a bit more to a world you love.
Because
So
I'm not
something
gonna
I've
lie,
always loved about this
I
stuff.
saw The Force Awakens strictly because it was a Star Wars movie,
Yeah.
but I'm actually excited for Rogue One.
Yeah, I think Star Wars Force Awakens definitely reinvigorated my interest in Star Wars. Because
Oh, yeah.
after we watched Force Awakens, we went back and we watched 4 and 5. We still haven't watched 6, which we should do. But I mean, the old Star Wars movies are still fantastic. They still hold up, and they're still like it's part. There's always going to be that nostalgia thing that kind of kicks in with anything in that realm. But they're still really solid films, and they make you feel like you're a part of something bigger because anyone that you go up to on the streets, like, I could just walk out of this building right now, run into the first person I see, and if I started, in a non-weird way, started talking to them about Star Wars in
In a non-weird way.
in some transition that made sense between, hello, stranger on the street, let's talk about Star Wars, they would know what I'm talking about. And the same goes for Marvel to an extent. If you go up to someone, it's like, so are you Team Cap or Team Iron Man? If they're paying any attention to social media, it's really hard to miss out on all the talk of Civil War. It's like, what do you think of Spider-Man?
You say that, but I was listening to the radio about the time that Star Wars was coming out, and
Yeah.
the host was like, I think I'm going to wait for it to come out on DVD.
Like, why?
DVD. I want to wait for VHS just because I like being behind the curve.
I was like, Star Wars, you're waiting for, I mean, there's some movies that I'm like, I could see waiting for DVD, like
Yeah.
Frankenstein, good movie.
Victor Frankenstein?
Yeah, Victor Frankenstein.
Yeah.
But we could wait for that to come out on DVD,
Yeah.
and I would have been okay seeing
Or
that
wait
at
for it
home.
to be on Netflix. There's movies like that where you can be patient.
Or Dracula Unchained, like the same
Yeah.
thing, where it was like, but Star Wars.
It's like the biggest movie
It's
globally.
Star Wars.
Everyone in the world, literally the whole world was like, Star Wars. That's everything. They were advertising on like oranges. They put little BB-8 stickers on oranges. I'm like, you can't just not go to see it.
I think that's one of my favorite things about like all these fictional worlds is that they get to a point where they're not just a story. Is they like people identify with them so much they become like these icons.
Yeah.
And it's like Mickey Mouse, for example. Like who doesn't know who Mickey Mouse
Yeah.
is? And I saw an interesting thing on Reddit about Mickey Mouse talking about like why doesn't Disney make a movie about Mickey Mouse? Well, I mean
Yeah,
he's such
sure.
a popular
I mean,
character.
yeah.
And everyone would go to see that.
Yeah, but
So why wouldn't they? And people said the reason is because he's not like fixed in a certain role. He's literally an icon. He's whatever you make him out to be. So they don't touch that because they don't want to lose that image of he's just Mickey Mouse. That's his
Yeah.
whole thing.
Yeah.
So it's just crazy, like him.
yeah.
Darth Vader, Batman, and Superman, like all the Avengers now.
Yeah,
They're just like
they're icons.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just think that's so cool.
I can almost guarantee you I would be willing to bet that there's more people that could name more of the Avengers than they could name more of the presidential candidates. Like, maybe not now, because I feel like now, because of the candidates that we have, they're all very, like, interesting in their own way. But, like, at the beginning of the nomination process,
Oh yeah.
I'm sure people
Especially
would be
with
like,
the,
oh yeah, I can
16
absolutely name it.
Republican nominees.
Oh yeah, there's like a whole field of them, and there's like 3 Democrats. So, I mean, but it's like people wouldn't be able to name Martin O'Malley or like,
What was the guy
There's so
from
many that does that.
Louisiana?
Bobby Jindal or Chris
Yeah.
Santorum. They wouldn't be able to name these people, but they're like, oh yeah, Black Widow, Hawkeye, of course. But I mean, in the comics,
And then of course you could tell
before
their
the
alter
Avengers.
ego names. And
Yeah, so they know so much about these people and these characters and these personas that they don't exist. Like, they're not real, and that's the thing that always gets me, is these universes are so big and so vast and so fleshed out that it draws you into them. And that's our whole thing with Lord of the Rings, at least. And why I love the series so much is because J.R.R. Tolkien poured so much of himself into that series. Like, he created 7 languages for Lord of the Rings.
That's Dan and I were talking about that the other day, that the biggest universes
Mm-hmm.
are Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, and comic books. I'm just gonna broadly
DC
sweep that.
Marvel
Yeah.
stuff. Because I mean, comic books, granted, have like a head start because
Because
they've been around for 75 years and they have multiple writers writing for it,
and
but
they can just kind of keep going.
But
yeah,
I
but
was-
they still have like so much. It's
But
like unreal
at this
how
point,
deep it goes.
Yeah.
How old is Star Wars at this point? Like
Oh my god,
25, 35?
Oh, it's older than
45?
Yeah,
that.
it's
It came out in the
30.
It came out in
60s.
2016.
2007.
2016.
I have no
40
idea.
years.
Doesn't matter, but
Wow.
it's still 40 years old, and people have been writing into the what is now Star Wars Legend. At one point, the continuity of it, and
Yeah.
it was across multiple writers, so it was kind of the same way, and they have their own comic book.
Yeah,
line.
New Hope was released in 1977.
That's what I thought.
So it's almost, let's round up to 2016. That's what, 30 years?
Yeah, I was right. I was.
I feel like it
almost
was
right.
longer, but yeah, you're right.
I mean, it's a bit
but,
more than 30, but it's still pretty crazy.
But that's my point. Is like, there's a whole lot of these when people say like, oh man, I love this one, like universe in this particular book. It's like, that's great, but it's literally just one book. Like, I feel like if you say that
It kind of ends there.
this one book is better than literally this, where you could go in and find out like the climate of this weird planet that's like
Yeah.
literally mentioned in one panel of one comic. It's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, that's just a throwaway planet, but yet that has its own
As the world's developed,
chapter.
and you know, like there's capital cities, like you know what the capital cities are, the governmental structure, you know, the
yeah, it's
atmosphere,
you know
the
all
climate,
this weird
the
stuff
summer,
that no one
yeah.
would need to know, but
Yeah,
you know what? We know it anyways because that's just what we love. We
and
like
you're so
you
passionate.
want to
about
make it so realistic and so much knowledge that it becomes real.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the biggest things of when something fake starts airing it to be like an amazing universe is when people start making languages for it.
Absolutely.
I think that's
Oh
when
my
it
God,
starts
that's
going
when-
like amazing to me because like Skyrim, probably my favorite video game ever, did that.
Mhm.
Like they have grammar rules on their wiki.
Yeah.
Who would
Yeah,
learn
and
this?
that's what
and
always
I
gets
just
me.
appreciate that
I hated-
someone out there.
I hated learning English grammar rules, the language that I made. I don't want to make another grammar
Yeah,
rules.
that's what always gets me about the Star Trek fandom, which I mean, we talked about Star Wars a lot,
Oh,
but
yeah,
Star
Star
Trek
Trek.
is such a big one too.
Oh yeah,
I almost
I almost
forget
forget about it.
Because I mean, I haven't watched the original series, but I like the rebooted movies, which I know is like, you know, some people hate it, some people love it, some people are
they
whatever.
do its job.
They
so.
do a job of making a fun action film, which is sometimes just what I want to see. But the fact that, and this has always been like mind-boggling to me, that you can go to conventions and they'll have like panels exclusively on like speaking Klingon, blows my mind. Because it's not even, like I can't even think of a real setting where people would do that with real languages. Like where would you go to be like, unless you're actively just going somewhere to learn a language, but this is an entire convention center full of all these little rooms of people talking about these fictional universes, and in one fictional universe, they're talking about a fictional language.
And they can have hundreds of people in it. Where
100
like
people.
you could go to
Eager
somebody
to
talking
learn.
about French, and there's probably like just a dozen.
Yeah, and it's like an adult language learning course, and there's like 20 people in a class and a teacher that hates his life. Like that's the difference there between people that actively are like, oh, I'm so excited to go learn grammar rules for
Yeah,
Klingons.
and
Like,
these people all have jobs and stuff, and they pay money to get to these
Oh my
conventions,
God.
and then
That gets
they,
onto the other
they
thing
talk
with
to the
fan art and all that
convention
kind of
artists
stuff
going.
too.
yeah,
Oh my god, the things that fans will create,
Oh yeah.
the money that they
Absolutely
pour
amazing.
into these things.
absolutely amazing.
It is it's amazing and I love it. And at the same time, it makes me like sick because I don't
That's-
have money and
yeah.
I just
And that's kind of how I feel about like love it or hate it, engage in it or not, think it's weird or not. Fan fiction to me is one of the most meta things in the nerd sphere, because there's some that are, you know, based around the universe. They're just extensions of the universe that already exists.
yeah, like they'll add a story here.
There are
and there.
some that literally they just take the same characters and the same universe principles and they move it into whatever. But now they're fighting dragons, or it doesn't even matter what it is, and they'll just supplant it into a totally different universe. And then these people have that new universe has its own like fandom or popular following. And that is a fictional universe based on a fictional universe. At what point do we go, okay, hold on now? Because it's so crazy. I saw one fan fiction. It's not even done. It's a very popular fan fiction in the X-Men fandom, but it's so far it's at 600,000 words, which is longer than War and Peace, and it's only a little bit over halfway done. And they've been writing it since like 2011. That's blows my mind. Since like people have
Where
been
do you have
following
time
this
for this?
5 years.
I
That's
barely
their
have enough
job
time
now.
to
That's
read
their job
regular
now.
comics sometimes. I'm like, I have to read comics. I really, really want to, but at the same time, I really just want to sleep.
Those just have like 500 words, so.
Yeah, and there's
Let's
there's
be
still
honest.
comics are like, because there's a lot to absorb on
Yeah.
each page. Like with books, you just kind of like get through the words and
You're
done.
done.
You've done your job.
But comics just like it's an art.
Yeah,
You
it
have
actually-
to read the words, and then you have to appreciate the picture,
Yeah.
and then you move on to the next
You
panel.
kind of see how the picture resonates with what they're trying to get across with the.
And
And
this-
it's always a bit interesting just to see how artists interpret what they're trying to
And
say.
I've said this to basically anyone that talks about like wanting to get into comics. I always say like, if you read Batman New 52 and start with like the Court of the Owl series, I think it's the second one or the first one where it has the page turning.
That is the coolest
Oh,
thing.
yeah,
I was just
that
like,
was the second
I
one.
flipped to that first page and I saw it doing this. I was like, no way.
Yeah, for
That
those of
was-
you,
no
for
way.
those of
Really
you,
neat.
for those of you who don't know, in the New 52 series, Batman there's certain events happen. I'm not going to really go into spoilers about this because it's a really great comic. If you haven't read it, you absolutely should. But Batman's mind starts to kind of be warped by some
Yeah, he starts
external
kinda
forces,
going crazy.
and the pages on the comic reflect that because it starts turning, and eventually you're holding the book upside down and sideways to read the comic the normal way to represent Batman's warped state of mind. And I look at that, I'm like, comics are absolutely a form of art. Like this is
Oh
something
yeah, I
that
completely
is
forgot
so
about that. That's like
gorgeous.
that's so cool to do.
Yeah, and
And
when,
so
when I
small, too.
that's the thing that when I explain that concept to people, I'm like, this is something where you're literally on the edge of your seat, turning this comic book, waiting for the next page, and they're like, that sounds really awesome.
I was reading that at home, but I've read a few comics in public, and I was
Mhm.
wondering if I was reading that comic in public. People would have thought I was crazy
Like, I
sitting
don't-
at Starbucks where
I don't
just
think
like,
he knows how to read.
my God.
And they're like,
Like,
it's not a kaleidoscope.
I know
buddy,
you
it's
sit
not."
there, and like I don't really audibly gasp too much. I'm not that kind of person, but I've done it before when I'm reading Batman comics. Like you're just like, whoa, that was cool. That was
Yeah, he
cool.
definitely has like just. I mean, and this goes for everything. Those moments where just words can kind of
Yeah.
blow your mind. It's just
All right, so
there's so much depth to these things.
we're pretty much approaching the end of this. So I guess that's kind of a last thing. Well, maybe maybe I don't even need to ask the question because it might be the same. But like, what just kind of last thoughts on what your favorite giant universe is? Because for me, it's pretty much a tie between Lord of the Rings and the DC comic universe.
I mean,
'Cause
yes,
the
but
DC comic is I feel like it's
since
bigger,
we
but
probably
this
have
is
the
deeper.
same reasons.
Yeah.
What would be, or same ones? What would be your reasons for it though? Because with the DC universe, I sometimes straight forget that it's not real. Like, no, I mean like the whole. Hang on with me. Like sometimes I legitimately think, I'll be like, are you talking about Batman? And on some level, I know he's fictional. But at the same time, I don't seem to like realize that if I'm having like an argument with someone.
Okay, Josh.
Well, that's all we have time for this week on the podcast.
Don't end it there, please.
Thanks for joining us, guys, and thanks for watching Josh's delusional tirade at the end of this. And thanks so much for everyone that went and watched my vlog. It's now just over 4,000 views. I couldn't be more thankful. Regardless of if you like Batman vs. Superman or not, I'm glad that you guys expressed your opinions and were able to find something that you liked in my videos. So absolutely thank you for that. Thank you for all the new subscribers we have. We hope you stick around. And if there's any kind of content you want to see in the future, comment below. All of our social media sites are in the description, so hit us up on Facebook or Twitter and
Hit us up.
hit us up. Hit us up on the social media sites and let us know what you want to see, and we'll try to make some content for you. You'll be fine, Josh. They already think you're weird. Bye, guys. Thanks for watching.
Later.
Bye.
Thank you.